This isn't a classroom, sweetheart. It's a battlefield. One colonel scoffed as she stepped into the war game command tent. They laughed. Officers, texts, even her own unit, convinced she wouldn't last past the first simulation hour. But she didn't argue. She just adjusted her headset and started giving orders. By nightfall, every unit was eliminated, except hers and the colonel who mocked her. He stood alone, watching the screen, silent. If you know that strategy can silence even the proudest voice, type out maneuvered below. The annual Joint Tactical Simulation at Fort Hayne wasn't merely a military exercise. It was a proving ground where reputations were forged and careers advanced. The largest multi-branch simulation wargame in the nation, drawing elite units from across all service branches. Over 600 participants, representing 48 units, 24 competing teams. Dozens of retired colonels and generals observing from elevated command tents, evaluating performance and identifying future leaders. And now, stepping deliberately into Command Tent 3 was Captain Liam Morgan, 29 years old. Army Intelligence Corps, attached at the last minute to Team Delta 7 after their original strategist suffered a medical emergency. She wasn't wearing standard battle dress uniform like the other officers. Instead, she wore a practical operations vest, carried a leather clipboard containing handwritten notes, and maintained a quiet, analytical demeanor that contrasted sharply with the testosterone-filled atmosphere surrounding her. When she entered the tactical briefing area, a low murmur of curiosity rippled through the assembled personnel. Who's the new advisor? Intelligence attachment, probably good with computer analysis. Never seen her in field exercises before. One man didn't bother moderating his voice for discretion. Colonel Richard Bragg, commanding officer overseeing the Red Team opposition force, spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. This isn't a classroom, sweetheart. It's a battlefield simulation that requires combat experience. Appreciative laughter followed his comment. Even her own Delta 7 teammates failed to defend her presence or challenge his dismissive assessment. Captain Morgan didn't respond verbally or show emotional reaction to the public humiliation. She simply took her assigned position at the rear of the command tent, carefully unfolded a detailed tactical map, and began quietly reviewing terrain elevation data and historical battle patterns. The exercise parameters were deceptively straightforward. Blue team units would operate as coordinated defenders, protecting strategic objectives. Red team forces would simulate aggressive offensive operations. The last remaining team, maintaining functional communication systems and simulated troop strength above 30%, would be declared victorious. Captain Morgan's assigned team, Delta 7, carried poor performance rankings from previous annual competitions. Their designated captain had withdrawn the previous evening due to acute appendicitis, leaving the unit without experienced leadership. She represented the replacement that absolutely no one had requested or expected. As the countdown to simulation commencement began, no officer solicited her tactical input. No team member reviewed her preliminary strategic notes or asked for her professional assessment. She spoke exactly once during pre-mission planning. We need to relocate to Sector K9 before Hour 3 of operations. No one acknowledged her recommendation or incorporated it into their planning. The briefing concluded with standard operational security reminders and communication protocol reviews. Officers dispersed to their assigned monitoring stations, checking equipment and confirming radio frequencies. Captain Morgan remained at her position, continuing to study topographical maps with the focused concentration of someone analyzing a complex's chess problem rather than preparing for simulated combat. She had spent the previous week researching 5 years of historical simulation data, identifying patterns that revealed why certain tactical approaches consistently failed while others achieved unexpected success. Most teams followed predictable strategies, establish strong defensive positions quickly, maintain aggressive patrol schedules, and attack enemy positions with concentrated force. But Captain Morgan had discovered something that escaped conventional military thinking. Every team that relied on traditional defensive tactics was eliminated by hour 5 of the simulation. She wasn't planning to defend territory or engage in direct confrontation. She was planning to control information flow and manipulate enemy decision-making patterns through strategic deception. The officers who had laughed at her presence were about to discover that warfare's most dangerous weapon isn't firepower. It's superior intelligence applied with surgical precision. Some military victories announce themselves with explosive drama and obvious displays of superior force. Others unfold so quietly that opposing forces don't recognize their defeat until complete elimination becomes unavoidable. The comprehensive simulation launched precisely at 600 hours, with all systems operational. Sophisticated drone networks fed real-time visual intelligence to command tents. Advanced computer systems tracked simulated artillery strikes, troop movement patterns, and casualty assessments through live GPS overlay technology that created unprecedented tactical realism. Most participating teams implemented exactly what they always did: establish strong defensive positions, rapidly maintain aggressive patrol schedules, and attack enemy positions with concentrated force. Delta 7, under Captain Morgan's quiet guidance, did absolutely none of those conventional things. Instead, they immediately relocated away from expected stronghold positions that every other team was desperately trying to secure. "We're not holding territorial ground," she explained to the confused lieutenant monitoring communications. "We're controlling information flow and enemy decision-making patterns." She had thoroughly analyzed 5 years of previous simulation outcomes with mathematical precision. Every single team that adopted static defensive positions was systematically eliminated by hour 5 through predictable tactical vulnerabilities. She wasn't participating in this exercise to defend territory or demonstrate superior firepower. She was here to suffocate enemy operations through strategic information manipulation. By hour 2 of active simulation, Delta 7 remained the only team not engaged in direct combat operations. Most observers assumed they were hiding from confrontation or experiencing leadership paralysis. Colonel Bragg made another loud, dismissive comment: "Delta 7 sleeping through their own elimination." But Captain Morgan was already implementing carefully planned psychological traps designed to manipulate enemy behavior. She had deliberately baited Blue Team forces into believing they controlled the strategically vital South Bridge crossing by feeding them false intelligence through compromised communication channels. She systematically left open a seemingly undefended corridor approach, deliberately inviting Red Team units into what appeared to be an advantageous positioning, but was actually a carefully constructed kill zone. She transmitted fabricated distress beacon signals from a neutral zone buffer area, successfully luring both opposing teams into unexpected mutual engagement that would eliminate both forces through friendly fire incidents. By hour 4 of intensive simulation, 3 participating teams had been officially classified as combat ineffective due to simulated friendly fire casualties. 2 additional units walked directly into pre-positioned airstrike simulation zones that she had activated through falsified target designation protocols. Throughout this systematic elimination process, no one in the command tent noticed her methodical coordination activities. She didn't deliver dramatic speeches or issue loud tactical commands. She simply monitored her computer screen with analytical focus, nodded at once when data confirmed expected results, and transmitted brief, precise orders through encrypted channels. Execute now. Withdraw to secondary positions. Allow enemy forces to engage each other. Colonel Bragg stopped making dismissive jokes around hour 6, when casualty reports began revealing the systematic elimination of experienced units. By hour 8 of the comprehensive exercise, only 2 teams remained operational, Delta 7 and the highly regarded Bravo 1 unit. Bravo 1 maintained 62% simulated combat strength. Delta 7 showed only 38% remaining forces. But Captain Morgan had already intercepted and analyzed their final movement coordination patterns through signals intelligence techniques. She systematically disabled their communication systems, transmitted false supply drop coordinates that lured them into disadvantageous positioning, and successfully trapped the remaining forces between a simulated minefield ravine in a coordinated ambush line that eliminated their final operational capability. If you've ever achieved victory through patience in planning rather than aggression, type "planned it all" below. At exactly 1900 hours, the comprehensive simulation exercise officially concluded with all monitoring systems simultaneously displaying final results. The screens in all 3 elevated command tents went completely black for several seconds, then displayed a simple message that stunned every observer. Simulation winner, Delta 7, remaining combat and strength, 31%. The primary command tent fell into absolute silence as officers processed results that defied every expectation and prediction. Colonel Bragg stood motionless, mouth slightly open in obvious disbelief. They weren't even engaged in direct combat operations, he muttered to no one in particular. Then a senior technician activated the comprehensive heat map analysis system that revealed the complete tactical picture, and everyone present saw the full scope of Delta 7's strategic coordination. They had systematically eliminated 23 opposing units without ever engaging in direct combat confrontation. Every movement had been meticulously pre-planned. Every enemy encounter had been strategically controlled and manipulated. What had appeared to be random defensive movements was revealed to be an intricate operational net systematically tightening over 13 hours of coordinated psychological warfare. Captain Lee Morgan finally stood from her monitoring position. "We didn't achieve victory by fighting harder than our opponents," she said quietly to the stunned assembly. "We achieved victory by thinking more strategically and planning more comprehensively." The command tent remained completely silent until someone, General Patricia Rowan, overall exercise director, began applauding with slow, deliberate recognition. Then others joined the acknowledgement. Then everyone, except Colonel Bragg, was applauding the most unconventional victory in simulation history. Bragg remained motionless, processing the complete reversal of his expectations and assumptions. The following morning, official commendations were announced during the closing ceremony attended by over 800 military personnel. 3 participating units received recognition for exceptional valor during simulated combat operations. 1 unit received the extremely rare Strategic Dominance Medal, awarded for complete control of enemy operational flow with minimal friendly casualties. Captain Lee Morgan's name was announced first for individual recognition. As she walked to the presentation podium, Colonel Bragg finally stepped forward from the assembly. "Captain Morgan," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I owe you a personal apology." She looked directly into his eyes with steady confidence. "No, sir," she replied clearly. "You owe it to every woman who's ever walked into a command tent and been told she doesn't belong in strategic leadership positions." The entire assembly fell silent again, processing the significance of her response. Then the applause erupted with intensity that exceeded any previous recognition ceremony. General Rowan approached the microphone. "Captain Morgan's victory demonstrates that superior strategy transcends conventional tactical thinking. Her achievement will be studied in military academies for decades. The Strategic Dominance Medal was presented with full honors, but Captain Morgan's most significant victory was the transformation of attitudes toward unconventional leadership approaches. Colonel Bragg remained after the ceremony concluded, approaching her privately. "I was wrong about your capabilities," he admitted. "Would you be willing to brief our officers on your tactical methodology?" She considered his request carefully. "Only if you're genuinely committed to changing institutional assumptions about leadership potential." He nodded with obvious sincerity. "Absolutely." 3 months later, Captain Morgan was promoted to major and assigned to develop new tactical training programs incorporating psychological warfare and information manipulation techniques. Her simulation victory had proven that intellectual superiority could achieve results that physical force could not accomplish. The officers who had initially dismissed her presence now sought her guidance for complex strategic challenges. Because true leadership doesn't announce itself through loud demonstrations, it proves itself through results that speak louder than any words. 6 weeks later, during the quarterly strategy symposium at Fort Hazen, attended by senior officers from multiple installations, one presentation attracted more attention and generated more discussion than any scheduled briefing. The presentation was titled "The Power of Tactical Patience, Delta 7's Revolutionary Victory Model." Major Morgan didn't deliver the presentation personally. Her former team members conducted the briefing with obvious pride in their unprecedented achievement. But behind their detailed slides, a massive digital display continuously replayed the entire simulation exercise in accelerated fast-forward format. Observers could clearly see the psychological traps, strategic deceptions, and tactical redirections that systematically eliminated superior forces. Every red elimination marker appeared precisely where Captain Morgan predicted enemy vulnerabilities would develop. One visiting general whispered to his aide, "That's not military simulation. That's three-dimensional chess plate at master level." In the back of the presentation hall, Colonel Bragg sat quietly, taking comprehensive notes and asking detailed questions about methodology and implementation. After the presentation concluded, a young second lieutenant approached Major Morgan directly. "Ma'am, would you be willing to teach other officers how to approach battlefield strategy with your analytical methodology?" She nodded once with characteristic brevity. "Only if you're prepared to be consistently underestimated by conventional thinkers first." The lieutenant smiled with understanding. "I think I can handle that challenge." 6 months later, Major Morgan's tactical approach became required curriculum at 3 different military academies, fundamentally changing how future officers approach strategic thinking. Today, in the central hallway of Fort Hayden's War Game Operations Center, a large monitor continuously displays Delta 7's complete simulation run for educational purposes. Adjacent to the display hangs a simple brass plaque. "Strategy wins wars. Major Liam Morgan, Delta 7, Victory." Underneath that primary inscription engraved in smaller letters, "They laughed, then they lost." The display has become an unofficial pilgrimage site for military personnel seeking to understand how intellectual superiority can overcome conventional force advantages. Colonel Bragg, now promoted to Brigadier General, regularly brings visiting officers to study the tactical methodology that challenged his fundamental assumptions about leadership potential. "This display represents the most important lesson I learned during 30 years of military service," he tells visitors. "Never underestimate intelligence disguised as quiet confidence." Major Morgan's victory transformed institutional understanding of strategic leadership, proving that the most dangerous opponents are often those who allow themselves to be underestimated while methodically planning comprehensive victory. Her approach has been studied by military strategists, business schools, and leadership development programs seeking to understand how superior planning can overcome seemingly insurmountable disadvantages. The woman who walked into a command tent to dismissive laughter had achieved something unprecedented: complete tactical dominance through pure intellectual superiority. Her legacy continues inspiring future leaders who understand that the loudest voice in the room is rarely the most strategically dangerous. Because true power doesn't need to announce itself, it simply executes flawless plans while others are still arguing about tactics. Subscribe to Ironheart Stories, where silence becomes strategy and brilliance earns respect.